is to occur.
Thank you. Second question. Please clarify your position on the extension of 526 into the James Island connector. And there's a second question that asks your opinion on the proposal to put the road extension through the park. And we will start with Mr. Johnson. Through the James Island Park. The county park, I'm sorry.
526, I believe, is going to happen with or without us. The state, if they deem it necessary for the area, we're going to spend thousands and thousands of dollars trying to fight them to stop 526. We're better off being a part of it and making concessions to where we can run 526 through or getting off-ramps on the James Island. There are quite a few things that I think that need to happen before they complete 526. I believe the bridges that they've now built have 4 lanes, and when you run over on the Maybank on the Johns Island, they only have 2 lanes. They need to make some concessions over there for traffic flow. As far as running through the James Island County Park, they're going to go through eminent domain to get what they need to take, or we can spend thousands of dollars trying to fight what inevitably is probably going to happen anyway.
Mr. Sloan.
You know, 526 is one of those questions that just makes me cringe because there's so many passions on both sides of it. I'm going to tell you what my opinion is. I believe that we eventually will need to complete 526. I think in order to do that, in order to have traffic flow, we need to be at the table and negotiating, as Mr. Johnson said, some concessions with regard to the design of that project. The biggest concession I would like to see is some sort of correction to the intersection down at Calhoun and Lockwood. I think that without those corrections, the traffic will sit on the connector going to downtown. And I think that's a major problem. As far as the park system goes, we were on the island when that happened, when they bought that big park. They bought that land there in part because they knew that that's where 526 was going through. There is a section of the park that was set aside for that, and that's why you don't see as much construction on that particular portion of the park. Could there be a different place to put it? Well, now you're talking about taking private property away from someone when you'd already set aside the property. Bottom line is, I'm out of time.
60 seconds is too short. 420 million is too much. Ending an interstate in a series of stoplights on Lockwood and Calhoun is a disaster. There's already a backup on the connector in the morning. I'm very concerned that this backup could get worse as 526 is completed. On the other hand, as I've talked to people on James Island, I've talked to many people who are very interested in having easier access to the Citadel Mall, to the airport, and to the North area in general, including jobs in the North area. SCDOT will present an environmental and a community impact study in the next 2 months. I want to see that study before I come to a final decision. I really want to see how many people are going to be going into downtown now because they want to go to the North area. If I'm elected, I'll talk to our lawyers. I don't want to spend a lot of money in a futile effort to stop something that'll fail. I won't spend money to make a point. And more importantly, I will make sure that everyone on James Island feels that they have...
Sorry, your time is up. Mr. Brown.
There's federal law that says if a town objects to having a freeway completed across that town, that the freeway cannot be completed across that town. If you, the 526 is not, the extension is not a done deal. If we choose not to have 526 run across the town, then we can stop the extension of 526. The environmental impact statement that Mr. Woolsey referenced is going to come out next week. It very clearly shows that the road will run across the north end of the park. We're going to never have a silent night looking at the Christmas lights in the county park again if that is completed across the park the way that the DOT wants it completed. We need to stop this now. We need to preserve our park. We need to preserve our exclusive connection to downtown Charleston. Thank you.
And Ms. Clark.
The town of James Island passed a resolution in opposition of 526 because after the hundreds and hundreds of emails and letters and people at hearings, it was felt that it was environmentally not sound. The people didn't want it, and the people felt that it was the death knell to rural Johns Island. So we passed a resolution in opposition, and I stand by that.
Thank you. Every poll taken, including one done in the Low Country by the University of South Carolina, has shown that at least 75% of voters favor laws to eliminate all indoor smoking in businesses, including and maybe especially in restaurants and bars. If elected, would you work to pass a smoke-free law in the town of James Island? And we start with Mr. Sloan.
I'm a big property rights person. I believe that a business owner has the right to decide if their business has smoking in it or not. I think that that business owner can make the best decision whether smoking in their restaurant or not is good for their business or not. I think that there are times when our government steps a little bit too far into our yard to tell us what to do, and I believe that smoking bans are one of those things.
Mr. Wilsey?
I would not work for a smoking ban in the town of James Island. I think that each business and each restaurant should develop a policy, and those people who prefer to go to restaurants that are smoke-free should go to restaurants that have smoke-free environments, and those people who prefer to go to restaurants where they have smoke, who prefer to go to restaurants where they smoke, should go to restaurants where they allow for smoking. Thank you.
Mr. Brown?
Ooh, this is a really personal issue for me. I quit smoking in the last year after being a smoker for over 20 years. And it was probably the hardest thing I've ever done. And I did it because my mother-in-law was taken to the hospital with emphysema and now has to be on oxygen all night long, every night. But that's no reason to pass legislation. My personal opinion on the matter shouldn't come into play. But I think it's incontrovertible that secondhand smoke is bad for people. It's bad for the people who work in the bars and restaurants. It's bad for the other patrons who aren't smokers. I would absolutely support a ban and work towards having a ban on James Island. I would also accept certain exceptions to that ban, which might include private clubs. Maybe if the owners are the only people who work in a certain bar, but I would support a ban, absolutely.
Ms. Clark?
We've had much action about this as well. People wanting to know whether we would support it. Some saying, would you not? I've never smoked in my entire life. And so I don't have a dog in that fight personally. But I believe that I go in all the businesses on James Island as well. I've been in all the bars, but the smoke was wild. And I belong to the VFW and the American Legion, and there's smoking in there. But I will not pass any law or try to have it passed so that people will have to do something in their business that they don't want to do. If I don't want to go where smoking is, I stay home. Thank you.
Mr. Johnson?
Well, being that I own a restaurant and a bar, and I am a smoker, unfortunately, my restaurant happens to be in the city of Charleston on Harvey Road, which is non-smoking. I believe that we should not pass that. Now, I'll tell you what, if the city were to alleviate it, my restaurant probably would not be smoking. I've actually enjoyed not having to smoke in there. So I believe it is up to the owner of the business to be able to have that choice. And people can make that choice. If they don't enjoy coming into a smoke, it's not smoking friendly to them, then they need to spend their money somewhere else.
If elected, what are your future goals for the town of James Island over the next 4 years? And we start with Mr. Woolsey.
I came to James Island to raise my family, and I hope that in 4 years from now, people will still come to James Island to raise their family. But to tell you the truth, my focus as mayor is going to be to straighten out our budget, to straighten out our financial system, and to make sure our basic services, the ones that the town is responsible for, particularly road maintenance, and drainage are taken care of and fixed. Thank you.
Mr. Brown?
I think we need to start by getting the basics right. Those are what Mr. Woolsey referenced, but that's not going to take 4 years. We can also start on some development projects, like connecting our neighborhoods with bike paths and sidewalks in 4 years. That addresses a big safety issue for our children, and another safety issue is the amount of crime on James Island right now. I think that absolutely has to be addressed right away. So I think in my first 4 years, I would concentrate on getting the basics right, making the island safe.
Ms. Clark?
First, I would concentrate on making sure that the town was safe. We still are in the state Supreme Court, and that will be heard about a year from now. And I think we will win, but one never knows. I would concentrate on the projects that we do now. We cannot depend on the county. We cannot sit down with the county. We tried it on Harborview Road. We tried it for our roads. They wanted $1.5 million just to grade the roads in the town of James Island. That was more than our budget had, so that's why we had to piecemeal it. We tried to, and the roads are so very important, we tried to do the projects with having a couple of people do it that did a good job, but the council wanted 3 bids and wanted us to take the lowest bid. So most of these things we've already tried, and I would continue to try, but we cannot depend on getting along with the city because they're out to destroy us. We cannot depend on the county. We must do this ourselves as a people.
Mr. Johnson?
We need to tighten up our government. We need to look at what we're spending, what people are doing. We need to make their jobs more efficient. Roads are always going to be there, and we're going to have to make concessions with the county. We've got to be able to negotiate in open lines with them. And in the short term, if they're not going to deal with us, then we're going to have to come up with a better plan than what we're doing now currently to get roads taken care of. We have people that you can't get an ambulance or a mail truck down to get them out of the road. We've got to work on this whether we have 10 weeks of rain or we have a dry spell. Those are the things I believe that we need to work on, that I need to work on in the first 2 to 4 years if I'm elected.
And Mr. Sloan?
The first thing is going to have to be the budget. We had a 66% increase in employee expenditures from 2009 to 2010 in the budget that was passed. That has got to change. Mr. Woosley has quoted many times that our overhead is about 70 to 80% of our budget currently. It sounds like a simple thing to do. Cut some jobs, change the way we spend the money, but it's going to be a little bit harder than that. And so it's going to take some time to actually figure out the budget and make sure that it's working for all of us. I believe that as a town, we need to be putting away money in reserves instead of spending every dime. We've gone into deficit the last 2 budgets, so we need to correct that issue. Second thing is we have to do these roads and we have to do the ditches. We have to create a plan that works. The county, the city, the state are all willing to talk to us. Many of them live here on the island and are willing to sit down and talk with us if we're willing to talk with them. I know that. I've called them. They've told me so. So we can work with them. We just need to create a situation where we're more respected by the community.
Thank you. Would you support a change from the present strong mayor government to a town council, town manager form? And we will start with you, Mr. Brown.
I don't particularly have an opinion on the matter. I would listen to the argument before making a decision.
Ms. Clark?
In the second town, the council that we had went through the ordinances from the first town because we adopted them. And they literally, phrase by phrase, took away all of the authority of the strong mayor. So that when we adopted those ordinances this time,